Now we'd like to begin EM Showcase presentations by those companies chosen. Now I'd like to invite speakers to the stage. Let us welcome them by a big round of applause.
As
they are coming in, we expect to hear from them about their business in order, and then at the end we'd like to take a commemorative photo with them. Now let me introduce those who are here today. First, from Growth Partners, we have with us Noriatsu Furukawa, President and CEO.
皆様はじめまして、グロースパー
Good morning and how do you do? My name is Furukawa of Growth Partners. We are very much grateful for such a valuable opportunity that is granted to us. I'd like to begin by a brief self-introduction. I was specialized in science. I was interested in space, robotics. Those are the topics that I used to study. For instance, I was trying to develop a robot that will always win in the paper, scissors, and stone competition. And then I joined McKinsey, and I covered about 12 companies in offering consultation, and then joined Advantage Partners. That's an investment company that has a history of about 30 years. And I was there for 12, 13 years. And then, toward the end of my career there, I used to be engaged in hands-on support by investing into listed companies to increase revenue and profit by way of managing number 2 and number 3 funds. And I was also involved in some buyout cases as well. More than 2 years ago, I became independent and created the Growth Partners. And there, I started with a fund to investing into a listed company. And the number 1 fund that was closed with a 9.5 billion yen, and we are now making an investment. And also, the second fund that has grown to about 6 billion yen, we are investing into several companies. And you see that our investment universe is quite diverse. We have about a dozen members, and thus the team has also grown as well. About the funds that I haven't engaged in, the one at the top, these are the funds that I was involved in the previous the career at the company that I used to work for. The number 1 and number 2 funds that has grown to the size of 17 or 11 billion yen, and now, because I was with McKinsey, I was exposed to those entrepreneurs that were interested in starting their own companies, and therefore I became interested in becoming entrepreneurs as well, to start my own company. That's why I started Growth Partners, and the funds that we started, it has grown as well. And those companies on the top, those are the ones that I was involved in the company that I used to work for. 80 to 90% of them are listed companies. And in terms of the sectors that are quite diverse, including manufacturing, tech, healthcare, and the restaurants. And now, with Growth Partners, we have been also engaged in the investment into diverse sectors, including retail, restaurants, tech, manufacturing, and among others. Together with other funds, cold call or reference to banks as well for sourcing were performed. And in the case of the buyout, we received some references from the intermediary companies. And toward the end of such a phase, we had a one-on-one interviews, trying to identify the challenges and issues and that we can offer some suggestions or solutions. And in some cases, 3 to 4 projects were launched typically. But in the case of large companies, more than a dozen projects were initiated. So week 1 to week 3, we had the project meeting, and then the final week, we had the management interviews to support various critical decision-making process. That's a typical approach that we have adopted. Members include those from the consultancy as well as financial institutions, and 2 or 3 members are assigned to each companies. And 80% of the time are used for enhancing the value of the companies that we are focusing on. There are 2 funds. Growth Partners Buyout is one. Right now, it is a size of 6 billion, but eventually we aim for 10 to 20 billion with LPs. And the 4th cases are going to be closed. And number 2 fund for listed companies. That's what we'd like to start next year. And we're interested in enhancing the growth net multiple 3 to 4 times. And 9.5 billion being the size of number 1 fund. That includes 6 companies. 3.5 billion yen have been already invested. And in some cases, exit has been already made. And those numbers inside the boxes, they represent the multiples. Well, recently, it's about the 2 point some. That's a multiple, and we will continue to pursue exits. I'd like to share with you one case. That's Tekakyu. This is a turnaround case. This was a listed company. And in fact, we are engaged in supporting listed companies as well as turnaround other cases. We make an investment of 1 to 1.5 billion to companies of various sizes, including 1 to 10 billion. And this is such a case. This is an apparel chain that has a long history. But they were hit hard by COVID pandemic, and that they needed recapitalization, and that's why we decided on investment. On the top right, you see that they are now making a profit, and the share price is now in the process of recovery. So far, the process has been quite smooth, and for the exit, at least the amount close to the principal has been already collected. And in some cases, we asked for the debt waiver amount by the banks, and recapitalization was pursued. This is a gentleman by name of Mr. Ito, who used to be the designer, and he used to serve as the vice president of the apparel companies before joining this Tekakyu. So between us and Mr. Ito and his staff, we have been working on these initiatives to make profit, and from now on, they are now coming into the phase of growth. Another case is about the buyout fund. 3 companies are already included, and this month there will be the 4th company. Equity basis that will be 800 to 600 or 200 million, and EV basis, the leverage of 40 to 70, therefore 4 billion to 7 billion. And EBITDA, the size, a typical size would be like 4 or 5 billion. And the repayment of debt, EBITDA growth, among others, with the entry with a multiple of 3 to 5 have been achieved, and hope that we can make an exit by 8 times, so that we can realize 3 times the return. And next year, while collecting the results of the exit, we'd like to move on to the next fund. This is another case. This is called Noveyu, centered around Nagoya. That's the company located in the middle of Japan, and they have about 200 salespeople. They are engaged in sales of fiber optics cables to connect households with a fee of 2,000 to 3,000 yen per month. And the fees from the carriers, that will be about 100,000 yen per household. So that about 30% EBITDA margin has been achieved. In this case, the improvement of the sales operation, DX support, among others, are the areas that we are looking at. They are also making an investment into solar panel business, the solar power generation. We also give support to them in that function as well. This is a reinvestment by the owners, 80% by us and 20% by owners, and owners still stay as CEO. 70 to 80% of the cases are pursued in such a case, and we want to achieve a larger size exit in the second round. So together with them, we are trying to grow the company with this buyout investment. This case, we started investment about 18 months ago. Though we are making the return, and EBITDA has been growing gradually. And we are interested in exit to a large size companies with us. Lastly, listed companies as well as pipes. Those are the new major investment strategies. And therefore, members engaged in both types of the strategies. And that would offer exciting opportunities for the members as well. Hope that we can make sure that number one fund would make a return, so that will lead to further development of number two and the following funds. Thank you for your attention.
ありがとうございました。拍手でお送りください。
Thank you very much, Furukawa-san. Next, from Deers Capital, we have partner Ms. Eriko Suzuki. Ms. Suzuki, please. Let's greet her with a big round of applause.
はい、
Hello, this is Eriko Suzuki from Deers Capital. I'm very happy to have this great opportunity, and also thank you for selecting us for the EMP at the FinCity Tokyo. We are a PE buyout fund. I'd like to briefly introduce our fund. As you see on this first page, we are a PE buyout fund focusing on small and mid-cap, and we started last year, and we're working toward closing Fund 1. So small, mid-cap in Japan, we're going to be investing in them. And so we think that there are very attractive factors already. And also, we're going to have some unique value up in addition to what the ordinary PE funds do. So really focus on the people, the human resources. That's where we like to strengthen our investee companies. And myself included, we have experts who usually would not be available in buyout funds. These would be human resource professionals that are members of our fund. And so it's briefly mentioned on the left-hand side. I'll go into more detail later. So we have partnerships with two companies, and we have internalized a team based on that. The two companies are quite unique companies. First company is Deers Brain. It provides weddings and HR consulting. And the other company is 3S Capital. That's a consulting firm. And large PEs, or they support the due diligence and PMI to large foreign PEs. And their consultants have joined our team. And the main members I will go into more detail later, but in addition to myself, Kuramasu was the representative partner, inaugural partner, and he was with CLSA, now called Sunrise. So he was in a PE buyout for more than 10 years. So there is that track record of his. And at Sunrise, he has been experiencing mid-cap investment. And so he understands the absolute return system. And so we utilize that playbook. And that is incorporated in our approach of human resource focused fund. And this is a simple self-introduction. In the past 10 years or so, I have been engaged in more VC-related investment. Before that, I was in more traditional finance, and the representative partner, Mr. Kuramasu, at the Foreign Investment Bank, I was engaged in M&A and capital market transactions with him. And in the past 10 years, I've been in VC, more impact and sustainability and ESG focused funds. And innovation and the startups, I really continue to support them. But as a minority VC, to work on the value app and the impact and the entity value enhancement, to balance all that, I felt was difficult. So I took this opportunity to work with my former colleague to actually buy the whole company, to introduce various reforms. And that's why we started this new fund last year. And this is a brief explanation. So I'd like to go from the right-hand side. It's a very simple thing. Target fund size is 15 billion or so. And the small and mid-cap SMEs in Japan are targets. And we really focus on human resources. So myself and Kuramasu, we have investment track record, and we have experience in retail and service industries. Also, we have strengths in the retail industry. So we're doing Fund 1. And the first investment is service consumer-related business. And we have a strong pipeline. So that is where we'll be focusing. And the target size, well, entity value, several billion yen. We're not a turnaround fund. So we'll be looking for those companies. And we will try to vitalize HR policy. And in looking at the investment sustainability, or does it contribute to women empowerment, in judging our investment, we do not look at those things. So we focus on whether we'll be able to contribute to business growth and whether it's a good company. And then based on that, we provide the HR consulting, and we try to enhance the corporate value. That's our strategy. And so I'd like to move on to the left-hand side. So the core investment members are shown here, the three people there. So in addition to Kuramasu, we have Ayako Suzuki, also from Sunrise CLSA, member from that background, and then myself. And of course, for due diligence and for investment execution, there are other members. So from these two companies, Deals Brain and 3S, we summon people on a need basis. And also, we focus on vitalizing HR people to enhance corporate value. So we are looking and focusing on our own people as well, and we want a diverse team. Private equity, buyout teams, female investors are quite rare, and so we want to take various measures to make sure. I mean, we have actually many members who have children, and so we have a flexibility, and it's merit-based. to enable that. So that is what we are doing. And so these are the two companies. Very simple explanations. I don't have time, so I'll be very brief. Deer's Brain, Kuramasu invested in that company when he was at the CLSA. So more than 5 years relationship with this company, and the Kuramasu invested in various SMEs over 10 years. And he felt that this was the strongest. And so HR vitalization, if other SMEs should focus on that, he was convinced that they would grow much more. And so by collaborating with Deer's Brain, we want to achieve that kind of target. So Deer's Brain is a wedding company, more than 30 wedding venues around Japan. And they have planners who have very strong sales capability. They have the human skills, communication skills, very strong people, and they sell high unit price product, which is weddings, which would be like 4 or 5 million yen. So there are a lot of strong people there, and we're able to provide HR consulting based on that. And 3S, it's really consulting focused on PE funds, so we're able to mobilize the people. It's rather than holding more than a dozen people internally, we tap on the human resources available at these two companies. And so this is the HR consulting. So they support hiring, like they need a few dozen people. So then they would help to get applications of thousands of people, and also they do training and education for HR. So that's what they've been doing. And I've already talked about this, so just to repeat briefly, we're a PE buyout fund, and so we are in a unique positioning, we think. And so there are many investment themes that are referred to us. And when you talk about funds, I mean, the environment has changed, but selling to a fund, people still concerned about that. But we are an entity that focuses on human resources, and we commit to a value up. And with that, we get many referrals and inquiries. And we have the Deer's Brain operating company, and Konishi is a very powerful manager there. So we can learn from senior managers who have done tens of billions. And so SMEs, they are looking to want to form relationships with these companies. So they are coming to us. So we have this unique program to vitalize the people and empower women. And before investment, we don't look at the women empowerment. We focus on return because we're aiming for a triple gross return. But we do due diligence of the organization and the HR. I think you do management interviews, but we focus on whether and how much HR vitalization we can do before we make the final decision. I think that's unique about us. So this is the first investment that we have done. So it's in retail or in service industry. So want to support these companies to hire more people and expand their shops. And so this is a company that we have been investing since last year. It's going well, and we're moving toward the exit in a smooth manner. And finally, some casual photos. So we're a PE fund that's really focused on human resource vitalization. So together with the Deer's Brain, annually we have these big parties. Thousands of people come together and commit to working together toward various missions. So it's not that for all the SMEs, we're going to apply the same approach of vitalizing the people. So we're going to apply approaches that's appropriate for each company, each investee, and to help them grow. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
様ありがとうございました。
Thank you, Ms. Suzuki. Next, from D3 LLC, we have a managing partner, Mr. Tomoya Nagata. Now, let us welcome Mr. Nagata by a big round of applause. Thank you for the introduction. I'm a managing partner of D3 LLC. Tomoya Nagata, thank you for selecting us one of the speakers for giving a sales pitch here as emerging managers. And we are very much honored that we were chosen as the such a reliable emerging managers. And at the same time, we feel some pressure. Today, besides the introduction of the fund, I'd like to also explain about the background, including the concepts and philosophy. We have 12 minutes, but including my self-introduction, I'd like to start my presentation. We are venture capital. In a nutshell, we want to contribute to the global medical and health originating from Japan. The reason why we are named as D3, there are 3 Ds in innovation, discovery, development, and deployment. What we are focusing on most is about the deployment. And this is the venture capital specialized in healthcare industry. What does it mean? That is to contribute to the health and safety of the funds all over the world. And as a result, that would produce a major financial return, resulting in the major social impact. And now about myself. I wanted to be the specialist in drug discovery. So I love physics, chemistry, and mathematics. But biology is something that I was not quite good at, but that's where I'm currently involved in. And looking back, I think it worked as I was studying the oncology, Alzheimer's disease, and CNS diseases. But during the researcher's the career, I had the concern as I was involved in the development of the pharmacology, the simple drug to come up to be produced as a solution to oncology and CNS diseases that are so complicated. Back then, there was an idea behind. Nowadays, that it's different. Also, I was expecting that the healthcare business imperative should drastically change, including the healthcare expenses. We can't afford to produce the new drugs in a limitless manner. And also, back then, for researchers and scientists, the more new technologies are developed, the more new options would be there. So at some point of time, the government has to decide which technology would best suit the population, but the government can no longer do that. So it is up to the population to make a choice. In other words, that means the healthcare as a business imperative. And also, healthcare as a data science, you might take it for granted, but back then it was called IT or ITC. With utilization of IT, we expected that the healthcare would eventually change as a result of data science, and therefore I was sure that what I was doing could also change drastically. And that is why I was motivated in working for the consultancy company. And there, I tried to move one step back, trying to think about what is a priority in the world of consulting. In fact, a consulting firm is engaged in a variety of activities. In my case, it was about the growth strategy. And as I said earlier, rather than healthcare per se, I was also looking at the drivers surrounding it, so that telecommunication, retail, among others, are the clients that I used to work for. And then, those sectors outside of healthcare were interested in coming into healthcare. That could be by way of M&A, but the valuation is quite high, and therefore, the what to do with the CVC and how the investment could be made. Those questions were there. And now with the progress of technologies, for leading companies to make use of technology to consider future vision, the working together with the startups was essential. And then the cross-border M&A didn't work back then, and for the new ventures to grow and the growth strategy, that is startups that has a strength in Japan, that was the essential condition. But back then in healthcare, those venture capitals that were performing well didn't exist. Mainly in the US, I would say that the way they were competing with against their peers in the US, that was quite different. Because of that, what if healthcare venture capitals are in short supply? Why not establishing one by myself? Based upon my career, working as a consultant with the background of the researcher, I thought that I lack experience to start at the venture capital. Then the mentors suggested me to once work for the funds in the United States to study. And there were a lot of lessons that I learned, the good news as well as bad news. Starting from bad news, I have to say, the Japanese ventures were not evaluated when we introduced them in Boston. On the other hand, the scientists of the ventures, when they were introduced to the U.S. investment community, they were amazed by the level of technology, meaning that if they are developed well, then they could be competitive in the world. And because of the conviction, I started the company D3. Well, I ended up with a master course, but other members, they have received doctor's degrees, and they were engaged in the postdoctor course, or one of them is the medical doctor. And the Novartis in Europe, he used to be working actively in Novartis. It is rare that such a person comes back to Japan. And originally, I was interested in consultancy, not the fund. And then I came up with the questions that are written on the left. First is about the market reality. In biohealthcare, go-to-market, that is quite time-consuming as well as costly. So it was not realistic for the startups to be engaged in such a operation. So, as in the U.S., the exit could be the M&A in the case of the startups in the United States. Therefore, I thought we need to nurture the environment to promote M&A in Japan. But then there is the Japan corporate gap. That is, M&A of the startups is rather difficult to achieve due to the less interest by the leading company's top management. In the case of the small-sized startups, the top management would not be interested in. So even when the deal was offered, it didn't work. In fact, I was engaged in such operations since I was with a consultancy firm, and this is what I continued. And then, in 2017, I started consulting for the top management. What kind of startups are the ones that the top management should be interested in? And also, there are other buyout funds like PE and VCs. They don't have state-of-the-art technology or knowledge. In the case of healthcare, that's where we can give a support and also incubation. As I said, I was not interested in starting the fund, but eventually we had to do that. The major reason being our clients, the large company executives requested us to start the fund because we are consultancy at the same time researchers. So that would be quite helpful for them if we start the fund. So because of that, we started our own fund, but right after that, we were hit by the pandemic. But so far, the fund that was launched at the same time as the pandemic, actually, it is performing well. First, the solid performance has been achieved. They are growing. In fact, all of them, the 10 companies in the portfolio. And then creative, innovative investment, that's the reason behind the growth. That's because of the deal structure. In some cases, we took a lead in creating a new scheme. The company creation, turnaround, as well as management buyout as well. For instance, there was a case of the affiliated companies of the municipalities. That's what we were engaged in. And also, the biotechnology, that's a global. Therefore, nowadays, those companies that are invested in, with the size of the tens of billions of yen, they tend to be located in overseas, and with the support with the ventures capital from the United States, for instance, we are expanding activities globally. And the fund 2, this was launched last year. Fortunately, it is supported by leading institutional investors. I'm sure that some of them are here today with us. And with such a precious investment, of course, we also have to work on those 3 imperatives. One of them is that, first of all, Japan can contribute to global health. Number 2, healthcare investment. There's financial return and social impact should be compatible, and I'm sure they should be compatible. And in the case of the emerging manager fund, I'm sure that those that made an investment in Fund 1, they were quite ambitious and courageous. And I would like to appreciate their ambition and motivation. Therefore, we want to continue to produce the return, even in the case of the fund that has been sustained for a long time. And I'd like to conclude by saying that we are quite grateful for the opportunity and hope that you would continue to support us. Thank you very much.
では続きまして
Next, we have with us Nobuhiro Maekawa, the CEO of Funds Startups. Good morning. Thank you for the great opportunity that is granted to us. I'm Maekawa of Funds Startups. I'm the last speaker. I'm sure that by now you are rather tired of listening to the presentations about myself as well as the fund. I would say that it has some unique characteristics, and therefore, including what we're doing as well as financial products that we are dealing in. Hope that you would raise your awareness about that, and hope that you would be interested in working with us. First, introduction of the fund, and then the history as well as the philosophy. So there will be 2 parts. About myself. I said earlier that I have somewhat unique characteristics. I don't have a background as a financial sector. In fact, I dropped out from the university, and then I joined the startups. And then within the startups, I acted as a CFO to bring that company close to the level of the listing. And then the fintech company that I joined didn't have a sales at all, and right now I act as a CFO there. And that's how I have been engaged in financing. Therefore, my background grew out of the working for the startups, and I was always faced with the question of what we could do, how we can overcome issues as a startups. And as I wanted to explore the potential of the startups and also the economic value of the startups in Japan is something that I wanted to prove and demonstrate. So besides the CFO activities, I have been engaged in various the conferences from the planning stage, as well as some government-sponsored committees related to startups. So anyway, what I have been focusing on is about startups through those activities. And with that as a background, when we consider financing in startups, I would say that environment is not the ideal for startups yet. And there may be the cases where if we had some means or tools, then we kind of made a major improvement. So starting from thinking about the role of the financing, eventually I wanted to develop the new financial products as well. First, the venture debt fund is what we are managing. Then so far, what we have heard about is about the equity fund. In that case, it is about the debt financing. In March 2024, it was established, and 3.8 billion yen. That was at the time of their final close. It was a number one fund, and the venture debt fund. There is already the track record overseas, but in Japan, the market has just launched recently. Therefore, to those investors that joined us in this fund, we wish to express appreciation, especially the financial institutions. Offering risk money to startups is one of the important part of their business, and therefore, we are working with them, trying to expand the funding sources that could be available. Sorry, this is somewhat a busy slide. Those three on the top, on the left, they are partners, and then they are engaged in investment, and then advisory board on the right. We started number one fund, but we are interested in the background. We have wide variety of people, CFOs, VCs, buyout funds, turnaround funds. Those are the experiences, as well as those that were engaged in banks, as well as the due diligence, among others, accountants as well, the equity investors that used to invest in listed shares. So that represents a wide variety of background of the people that are in our team. So the first we have to have the expertise on debt, and at the same time have to have a knowledge about equity so that we can improve alpha. That's how we started our team. In the investment consideration process, we have a history of about 18 months. 350 companies were included in the candidate, and right now we are investing into 15 of them. Whether it is high or low may be a question, but as a debt fund, I would say that we are quite selective in deciding on the companies that we invest for. What we are focusing on the right, that's reproducibility and efficiency. In other words, we are close to mezzanine with a debt fund and a venture debt fund, and what we should look at, and what about the equities? We have to look at both sides, and therefore we have to have a high origination skill. If it is to be decided by subjective judgment made by the members, that would not be sufficient, and that is why we mobilize those people with a professional expertise. We see that AI is currently introduced in those investment activities. In a way, I would say that our approach is somewhat closer to that. We have a scoring model comprising 35 items, and the debt-related scores to measure the risk, and then the equity-related scores to represent upside potential, and how we can visualize the risks that are there. And then we also utilize AI as well in considering the companies that we invest for with reproducibility and efficiency. This is the portfolio of number one fund, deep tech. That's one area that we're interested in. And we came to full investment with 4 billion yen, and we are now moving on to the next phase. As I said earlier, besides investment activities, within Japan especially, the venture debt market is what we'd like to create together with the financial institutions. And therefore, we are working together with the Banking Association to realize sustainable venture debt market. Now moving on to the history as well as the background, the philosophy. When we started this company, the mission that I identified as such, the startup to create a social impact which can achieve the most ideal growth, and I wanted to create such a scheme to realize as such. It was since around 2013 that such the activities started in this sector, with a track record that has been quite the rich. On the other hand, we are faced with a changing environment, and uncertainties about the future of startups are currently under discussion. On the other hand, if you take a look at each individual startups, some of them are splendid, wonderful, as we heard from other speakers. In fact, they have technologies that Japan can offer for contributing to the world. At the same time, whether there is a financial infrastructure or not for them to be launched into the global market, this is the area that we can further make an improvement, further refine it, and create a new financial environment to encourage the startups. The one keyword is that as a venture debt player, what we consider as most important is that eventually we want to be the startup specialized investment bank. The refined, sophisticated financial professionals' expertise should be there to support startups. And the market development indicates the areas that we should focus on. I'm sure you are familiar with them. Compared to the United States, labor market in Japan is yet to grow. In terms of changing environment, the listing criteria at TSE was revised. And deep tech, recently, together with the risk management, deep tech is increasing its weight in risk management, and yet that is yet to be fully developed. And therefore, I have to say that we have limitless number of risks that we are faced with, and that's where we want to offer solutions to. You might have heard about the venture debt, but some of you may not be familiar with that, and therefore, I'd like to share with you what it is. The venture debt, that's a kind of the financial the instrument. The return has a kind of equity nature, even when we make an investment in debt. What does it represent? In the case of the startup financing market, it was mainly by way of the equity, and once they grow, then they could receive a loan from the banks or financial institutions. So it was well established, but on the other hand, there was a kind of the single approach. But in some cases, the undesirable exit, undesirable the financing sourcing are faced with by those startups, and therefore we want to be acting in the mezzanine, so to speak, to bridge those two, so that the startups that fail to proceed or advance further could overcome those issues and move forward. And it could be the equity, or share assignment, the attached CBs and others, so that the equity return could be secured and the risk could be lower in the case of the interest rate to be secured. Those are the ways to ensure the return. The debt represents about 30% of the equity market. In fact, That's what we see in Japan as well. Since 2021, the market has grown sharply. And looking at the US market, venture debt has a major growth potential in 2025. It was the year with the highest venture debt the financing made available in the past 15 years. And we are seeing increasing number of players joining. And yet, only a handful of players are there and the venture debt funds. Therefore, I would say we are one of the first penguins. And through this market, we want to ensure the return and offer a variety of solutions to startups. Lastly, with the venture debt, especially for those startups in the middle to later stage, we want to offer new options for financing. And this could be the very important the financing solutions. It has established a track record in overseas, but I would say that this is a market that was just started. The venture debt has to be sustainable, and therefore we engaged in the development of the models that are reproducible, trying to create a track record. Starting this year, there will be the launch of the fund, number 2 fund, and hope that my presentation helped you becoming interested in venture debt fund. Thank you for your time. Thank you very much, Maekawa-san. Now, I'd like to invite all the speakers of this EM showcase to take a commemorative photo. And from here on, Hiroshi Nakaso, the chairman of FinCity Tokyo rather, would join us on the stage.
では皆様ステージ中央へお願いいたします。はい、それではお並びいただきましたらカメラへ。
So please look at the camera.
皆様笑顔でお願いいたします。
Please smile.
ありがとうございました。記念撮影以上な。
Thank you. So you've taken the group photo. Let's give them another big round of applause. Thank you so much.